Hi everyone, my name's Anne Marie. Welcome to this card making project. In this episode we're going to make a gorgeous card using lots of our Anna Griffin goodies. Now everything I do is I should put in a detailed list on my blog, so please be sure to check it out. And for all my UK friends, all these items have been available at some point on our UK screens. My friends across the pond, you've already had these as well. So there's nothing that's not available or wasn't available at some point. If for my UK friends I ever use something that hasn't been available in the UK, and there's only a handful of items, they were items I purchased at Create 4 last year, so I would point those out. But everything else has been at some point available here. You can always comment on Facebook, you can always contact me directly through my blog. And now, yay, I think my glitch on YouTube is fixed. So you can comment away and I should be able to reply to you. Give me a few days due to commitments, etc. if there's a lot of comments. And give it a go. So I'm going to start off showing you the stamps and the dies that we're going to use for this project. Because there's a few. Now, we're going to use part of the calligraphy stamps from Anna. We're going to use, now these are some old stamps, the ribbon trims from Anna, and some of the 18th century garden, and this was a collection, it was in a binder, it was a long time ago. So we're going to use those. Don't panic if you haven't got them. I'm sure you'll be able to use substitutes or something else that you might have in your stash. When you see what we do with them, you'll get an idea and then think, oh yeah, I haven't got that, but I have got this and I can use that. We're also going to use the all heart die, the large lattice die. So for my friends that have asked which dies I use, etc., this is the one that we're going to use. Now while we're just looking at dies, I just want to point out I've been asked how I store my dies. Now this isn't a perfect example actually, however it shows I put them on magnetic sheets. I put cardstock on the back of the magnetic sheet and then they're all stored in a box like that. They actually, I say this isn't a perfect example because they normally have tabs on the top. I'm just looking to see if I've got one on my desk and I haven't, but I'll show you one next time we use them. You'll see them with tabs. I've normally got a tab on the top, so when they stand up in a box, it shows what they are. So those are some of the items that we're going to use. Now we're going to start off with our base card, which is a 7x5 inch card. And for my new viewers, I'm going to give you a perspective. This is a cardometer, and it shows you the A4, A5 of my friends across the pond, the A3, 7x5, A6, or A2 for my friends across the pond, A1, ATC, or for here, A1 is A7. So the A5 is A4 folded in half, or A3 for across the pond. The 7x5 is the card that we're going to be using, and that will give you perspective of the size of it. Now I don't think it's too big or too small. I think it's an ideal size of card. And it's nothing that you can't either fill or not fill. Don't be daunted by the size because it's just the perfect size. Remember to add your name on the back. If you're looking to have any handmade by stamps, add those. Add your name. I just add the number of the project because then that sort of, as I've got them boxed up, I can sort of see what number the project was. I'm trying to do that on all of my cards this year. Okay, so I've just used my bone folder to make sure I've got a nice sharp edge along the top of the card. A bone folder for new viewers is a tool that was in the Anna Griffin tool collection, and it enables you to help fold paper, score paper, etc. So let's start with the inside of our card. Now for our inside, it's very simple. I've taken a sheet of ivory cardstock. I've trimmed it down to 1/2 inch, so it's 1/4 inch gap around the edge to create a layer. I've used the calligraphy stamps to stamp along 4 sides and into the corners. I've used this particular stamp, this one here, and I've used the edge of it on the 4 sides and then the tip of it just into the corners. On the 4 sides I've stamped using perfect medium, and then I've heat embossed it using white embossing powder. For the other 4 I've used hyacinth ink pad from Anna Griffin, and then I've also tinted the inside of the 4 along the edges again with a hyacinth ink pad. So I've got flat tape on the back of this, and I can add this into our card like so. There we go. Now the sentiment I've used is from the Treasury original set of rubber stamps and dies, and it just says on your wedding day. Now this card, I would say, is the most perfect wedding card or anniversary card. Obviously if you use anniversary you might want to change your sentiment. So I've stamped it out again using the hyacinth ink pad, and that was an older ink pad in a lilac colour. I've got flat tape on the back of it. Now I'm not going to add it straight away. I've stamped onto vellum using the ribbon trim stamps. Let me just show you which one. And it's this one at the bottom there. I've stamped onto vellum using perfect medium, and then white heat embossing powder. I've used a heat embossing tool to emboss it. I've trimmed it, and I've just cut 2 swallowtails at the end. I've got double-sided tape on the top of it, and I am simply going to add, oh, I've got some on the back as well. There we go. And got some on the back of that. I'm going to cross them over. I'm going to take the sentiment, add them to the back of the sentiment like that, and then add the sentiment into the inside of our card like that. There we go. Press it down, and that's the inside perfect. We've got enough room to write in. Obviously if you're going to send a longer note or letter you might want to add it separately. Now we can concentrate on the front. Now I think this tutorial might turn out to be a longer one because I want to explain everything as we go, and we're going to now just step away from the card and work separately, because what we have to do is put everything together first before we add it to the actual card. So I have a piece of cardstock here that I've cut to the same size as our actual card. I've been very naughty, I haven't prepared it properly because I haven't taken the back of the foam squares away. Now there's a reason I haven't taken the tape away, but there was no reason for the foam squares. So this piece of card, it fits the actual card front, 7 by 5 inches. And what I've done is I've scored in the middle 1 inch, and I've found the centre, and then I've scored 1 inch around the centre. I've then used 4mm pearls around the edge in ivory, and just not through the centre. I'm going to put that to one side for now. Our next layer is vellum. Now this is where our rubber stamping comes in, and I've used the 18th century garden rose stamp. And I'm just reaching for the stamps. There we go. I've used the rose stamp and I've stamped on vellum through either side of it. And then I've used perfect medium for the ink. And then I've used white embossing powder. And then I've gone back to the calligraphy stamp for the edges. And stamped again using perfect medium. And then using the actual white heat embossing powder. Once I've heat embossed it, I've then trimmed away the edges and trimmed it so that it follows the pattern of the roses. Now I've got to say it's very forgiving, so if you're not the best cutter outer in the world, just, you know, do the best you can, make squiggly lines with your scissors and trim away. And trim it so it will fit slightly smaller to the previous layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to just add the layers together. I'm going to do it on a sheet of wax paper only because I've taken the backs of the 3D foam away and I don't want it to stick. So you can see where I had 3D foam around the edges of the vellum layer and clear tape in the middle. So what we're going to do is put one layer over the top of the previous layer, like so. There we go, press it down, press down the 3D foam, and you can see where it just kind of bends together in the middle. Our next layer is our all heart layer, and again Naughty Anne-Marie hasn't prepared very well and I've still got the backs of some of the foam on. This is in ivory cardstock. I've added 3D foam, as you can see, along the edge of the die cut, and I've got clear tape through the centre, double-sided tape. And I'm going to also add this so the tape runs through the centre of our layers. And now you're thinking, oh, I can see the tape, Anne-Marie. I can see it. And that's why we're working away from the actual card base to begin with. I've got a piece of ivory ribbon and we're going to make sure this is all attached together, running the ribbon through the centre of our scores and then turning the edges over like that. There we go. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the top where the ribbon's been turned over, like so, because then I can start working towards going to my card front. Before we do that, I've cut 2 ribbon trims like we did for the inside, but these are slightly longer. And I've got clear tape on the top of them. So these were stamped in vellum, on vellum, with perfect medium, and then added the white embossing powder, and I'm simply adding them just around the top of the card, like so. And so where the glue was on the ribbon, that's where they'll attach to. And then I can just add a little bit more glue over the top of those, and we can add this to our card front. Now we're ready. And we can position that. The middle will sit flat, and then the sides, a bit like a book. So we can press that down in the middle and press it down towards the edges. So we can see how it kind of starting to take on the look of a book. Now we can add our sentiments. I've got 2 sentiments, and these are from, if you remember, the Anna Griffin Fantastic Flip Card die set and card making kit. There were some extra stickers that went with this, and I've got 2 of them, and one says wishing you all the happiness, and the second one says this special day brings. I've got 3D foam on the back and the sticky part, because I'm going to add these slightly off centre, so the 3D foam and the actual stickiness will stick through the lattice and off the edge, as it were, like so. So I can press those down. Next, I have some tiny little flowers. Now these were from the Delicate Engravings kit, and I've simply taken 4 of them for a touch of lilac, and I'm going to add them just in different places around my sentiment. And it doesn't really matter where they go, we're just adding a touch of colour. So we'll go slightly this way. There we go. And we'll just tweak that one to go up the sentiment, I think, like so. Now for the centre, I've created 2 ribbon strips with pearls. These are 4mm pearls, just on ivory cardstock, stuck down in a straight line, left to dry. I've got 3D foam on one end of them, and I'm actually going to add an ivory bow to the top of my card, and then to finish the card I'm going to add the 2 pearl strips just underneath the bow and underneath the tails, so it kind of sits like so. They're just at different lengths, and you can manipulate them to curl slightly, and they just sit on top of the vellum. And that is our card finished. Now I think you'll agree it's, you know, it's such a perfect wedding card. That's what I mean about the wedding or the anniversary. It's so pretty, so different. The inside matches perfectly with that touch of lilac. Obviously you could use any colour. The vellum is just such a perfect touch. I know you don't see a lot of it, but that's why I say it's very forgiving. And it stands up perfectly. Now I've got to admit, I think if you're sending this, you're going to need a little bit of padding for this. There's quite a few layers, so you might need one of Anna's big fat mailers. Now I know we haven't had those in this country, but my friends across the pond. So you might need to use a bigger envelope in this country. But how pretty is that? And it's worth that extra time and trouble, and it's gonna just look amazing on any mantelpiece, on any wedding table. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope it's given you some ideas and inspiration, and I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.